Welcome into another edition of the Wolverine.com postgame show here on the aforementioned Wolverine.com YouTube channel. You can also listen after the fact in our podcast feed. So wherever you get your shows, be sure to subscribe there. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, all those good things. Before we get into game talk, of course, we will discuss Michigan's 34-3 win over the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Former Michigan defensive lineman Ryan Van Bergen here with me, as he is every week. But before we do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Lewis Jewelers, who is the sponsor of our Saturday post-game shows. Keith and the team over there have been so incredibly supportive of our site, of our magazine, of the post-game shows throughout the season. Be sure to give Lewis Jewelers, if you're in the Ann Arbor area, give them your business. It is where Ann Arbor gets engaged. So thanks to the folks over there for that. So, all right, there are a multitude of directions we can go with this one. I think first we start with the good. The good, just another casually dominant game. Michigan has not played a four-quarter game this year for the most part. This was as methodical as it gets. This was as businesslike as it gets. I saw a tweet, and I forget who it was from. If you're someone who listens to the show, feel free to tweet me about it, tweet us about it. Someone said, it's boring. It was a boring game, but if it was interesting, then it would mean very bad things for Michigan. So, Ryan, pretty casual blowout of what has been a year of casual blowouts en route to a 10-0 record.
It was, and it was more of the same as far as we're on brand. Michigan's brand of football, I think we're pretty committed to being a physically tough team that relies on our defense to keep points off the board, and we're going to grind you out offensively and run the ball down your throat. I saw a graphic that Blake Corum, I think a good portion of his runs came through the middle to get 125 yards just through the middle between the tackles. None of those really big, banging, long runs, but just consistent. And I think that's a credit to the offensive line. No Trevor Keegan today. So we had some guys stepping in to substitute for some guys that are down in the offensive line. And that's one thing that's really a tribute to a good team is you have a next man up mentality and still are able to execute the game plan as if you have your normal starting five. So, offensively, the offensive line, running backs, I think did a great job. Thought we had some opportunities for receivers to make plays, especially in the first half. Weather obviously not that great, so that probably impacts it a little bit, but still missing some of that downfield part of our offense. But luckily we have the best ground game in the country to rely on.
Yeah, we'll run through some of the numbers here. It was just complete and utter domination for most of this game for Michigan. 412 total yards, 264 on the ground. Another great day there. I think they're averaging about 250 on the year, so they're over that. 148 yards passing. We'll talk about the passing game. I'm already seeing a ton of questions about it. Trust me, we will get to it. 27 first downs to 8 for Nebraska. 4 for 10 on third down, 2 for 2 on fourth down. They ran 69 total plays in this game, averaged 6 yards per play, yada, yada, yada. Dominated time of possession, 35 minutes to 24 and a half for Nebraska. No turnovers. Again, another clean game. So, yeah, in the stat sheet, this will go down as a dominant win against the Nebraska team. I believe I saw that before the game. This was the largest point spread. And Michigan was a 30-point favorite in this game. This was the largest point spread that Nebraska's ever had in the history of its program. And Michigan found a way to cover it late. So credit to them there. It was a little bit sloppy early on, just in terms of a little bit windy. There were some snow flurries, though nothing really nothing stuck to the ground. Actually, in a lot of ways, it was similar to that Ohio State game last year. But I think we need to, the direction we go is addressing the elephant in the room. And I know, Ryan, a lot of times we've talked about how this whole thing now is a build up to the Ohio State game. You're 10-0 for the first time since 2006. I think the last time they did it before then was 1997. So again, you're still doing these things you haven't done as a program, in at least, 15 to 25 years. But we've talked about it before, where when you play Ohio State, it doesn't need to be fight fire with fire, which we saw last year. Michigan dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They took care of business on the ground. And as we've said, when you do that, you get to dictate what a football game looks like. That being said, I'm starting to get a little concerned. Not concerned. Concern was a couple weeks ago. Starting to get a bit irked by what the shape this passing game has taken. JJ McCarthy was, I pull up the stats here, 8 for 17, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, great. No real huge standout moments for him in the game, but under 50% for the second week in a row. Ryan, these wide receivers, they're just sleepwalking through games right now. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, concentration drops from guys like Ronnie Bell. Cornelius Johnson still, it looks like he's kind of in the doghouse right now after dropping a pass or one going through his hands earlier that probably should have been a positive play for Michigan. They're not creating separation down the field. Nebraska was playing their corners and their secondary up tight. Some of the shots were there, and JJ wasn't quite perfect. It's, this isn't playing possum. This is a lack of execution, and to call a spade with the wide receivers, it's a troubling lack of player development to me that we're 11 weeks into the season and guys just are not making plays.
There's no impact, and that's something that I feel like we're missing, is that impactful receiving presence, especially when you talk about the last game of the season. I'd love to see us go in there and dominate and be able to have our running game go the way that it's gone through the last 10 games. But in the event that Ohio State gets out, Ohio State we know can pile up points in a hurry. In the event that Ohio State gets out to a 2-score lead early, then all of a sudden, what do we do as Michigan? Because we're not a team that is built to play from behind, especially in a hostile environment when momentum is swinging the other way. So it's definitely something that's concerning, but I am encouraged by the fact that I feel like the receivers are being rotated, the targets are being spread around. They're begging someone to go out there and impact this game, and guys just aren't stepping up and doing it. I got to believe that we have the talent at that position. We've got some depth at that position, but so far, no one has been a physical presence and gone and got the ball. Even on the deep balls today that you saw, our receivers, I consider it allowing yourself to be squeezed away from the ball. They're counting on a call from a referee, even though, the D-back's got his head turned and he's using his off arm and pushing him off his path. You got to be more physical and stay your course and go help your quarterback out and win some balls. Outside of the Ronnie Bell play, which honestly, with the way it finished and almost went out of the end zone for a touchback, that was almost a disaster. But outside of that, the receivers don't have an impact on the game. They're just extra blockers. And I know that we ask them to block more regularly than most other teams, but they have to be able to make an impact in the passing game. And I think a good portion of the blame goes to the receiving core, and there is a part of it that goes to McCarthy. I honestly think that he has not developed and maybe even taken some steps back with regards to how he throws his deep balls. When we first saw this kid, he was slinging them and putting lots of air underneath him, very comfortable throwing the ball down the field. Now I feel like a downfield shot comes and he gets a little nervous, and it's not trending in the right direction. And it's the one thing that I feel like offensively that if we had this bullet in the gun, it'd be really nice going into Columbus.
Yeah, and no one's asking them to turn into Texas Tech and throw the ball 50 times a game and chuck the ball down the field. But when those opportunities present themselves, they're not cashing in on that right now. And even in that Ohio State game last year, like obviously you won the game on the ground, but there were still portions of that game where you needed to make a throw, make a play. Cade McNamara makes a throw, and a wide receiver makes a play, or what have you. And the thing that boggles my mind is that a lot of these guys are the guys that were here last year. And even the room is enhanced because Ronnie Bell was back. And, you have these talented young freshman wide receivers. So Jeremy with a $10 super chat here says 100% no separation, slowing down on routes, getting jammed at the line, terrible route trees, would have benched them all for the second half. It was the same 4 wide receivers for the entire game until 6 minutes left. Yeah, I was a little surprised. Last week at Rutgers, we saw the freshmen get in there a bit. And I thought that was maybe symbolic of the tide turning in terms of these are our upperclassmen guys, and these are the guys that are going to be on the field. But we didn't see that this week. So yeah, a fire has to be lit under that group, and I don't know what it takes. Part of it's play calling too. I think that they've had a really tough time establishing a rhythm in the passing game, but. Yeah, it's again back to the Ronnie Bell play. And again, we're going to talk about the good things, but these are the questions that are rolling in. The Ronnie Bell play that should have been, that was a touchdown, and then Andre Anthony gets credit for it, recovering the fumble. That's one of those things where it's like, it was a crappy day at the office, but you salvage some goodwill with a wide receiver making a play and he fumbles before the goal line. It's like it's just like pulling teeth there right now. It's hard to watch, and there's a lot of work to do there over the next couple of weeks. Again, they don't need to fundamentally change what they do offensively, but my God, when the opportunities present themselves, they've talked about being an offense that takes what a defense gives them, and they're this goes beyond leaving meat on the bone. It's a lack of execution, and it's troubling. So we'll see what happens there with all of that. Any final thoughts on wide receivers? We're going to move on from that and get to some of the other aspects of this game.
We just need to find someone that's going to make plays. I mean, the one thing that's kind of weird is as we sit here talking about the passing game, who's JJ's favorite target? I don't have an answer for you, and that's a problem.
Luke Schoonmaker,
right?
And he's not out there.
And he's not out there, and it's a concern that our quarterback that now has been starting for 7 weeks, we don't know who his favorite guy to throw the ball is to. That's one thing that part of me thinks, like, behind closed doors, they need to have a really good conversation with the quarterbacks, quarterback coaches, receiver coaches, and just say, what do we like? Because right now it seems like we're throwing stuff at the wall, literally, and no one's bringing it down. And if we can't find a guy that's going to make a play and impact the game, then we got to go to the next one. And I think we continue to rotate receivers and continue to cater to JJ. What does JJ want to see? What is he comfortable with? Because he's still a young quarterback, but we need to get him more comfortable in putting balls on the right spots deep so we can make those catches. But again, receivers got to make plays. There's not going to be uncontested catches down the field all the time. You got to go get a ball.
Yeah, and there's an aspect to it too where when you run the ball as well as they do, like, it would be malpractice to go away from it. But these passing defenses that they've played over the last, really since Big Ten play outside of Iowa, I mean, everyone has been ripe for the taking, right? And we're seeing teams like Nebraska who have this. I mean, they're just so talent deficient compared to the rest of the Big Ten, and your wide receivers are getting jammed at the line of scrimmage. Like, it can't happen. It needs to, if there's going to be something that turns, I'm seeing other teams. I'm seeing Georgia hit the accelerator down the stretch. I'm seeing Tennessee bounce back with a huge win today. Alabama got itself right today. Ohio State got itself right today. And again, in the vacuum of 1 week, I'm not going to put too much stock into what other teams do, but it's got to improve there. I'm a broken record there, but every week I feel like it would come on here and say, oh, well, gosh, missed a deep ball or two. It's got to change. So we'll roll through some questions here. There's a lot to get through. Quick one here from Scott Johnson. What happened to Donovan Edwards? It sounded like the TV broadcast said he was banged up. The other guys are down at the press conference right now. I haven't seen an update on that quite yet. It sounds like Jim Harbaugh was a bit mum on it, as he tends to be, which usually means that it's not super serious. So we'll see. Another workman-like day for Blake Corum, a quiet, 162 yards, another touchdown, his 17th of the year. I mean, he is the heartbeat of that thing right now. CJ Stokes with a big day, 8 rushes, 68 yards. We saw Tavier Dunlap. We saw Isaiah Gash. We saw Leon Franklin. So depth chart got a little bit of a workout today, but I don't think that that's too serious. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Let's go to... Here's one for you, Ryan, from Dave Mays. It says, did this game tell us anything we didn't already know?
I think Will Johnson might have won himself a starting corner spot from the defensive side of the ball. I think that he's a guy that we always knew that he was going to be a talent and tough to keep off the field, but I think he's done enough to cement his spot on the defense. I also think that we're still learning, I think, about what we can do as far as running the ball in different formations. I saw a lot more shifting. We talked earlier this year about not having tight ends flip sides early formation. I think you saw some more dressing, which I think helps in the run game. And I wouldn't say we'd learned a ton about this team. It's just the fact that they can stand up repeatedly and bully teams in the trenches is such a blessing and such a cool thing to have that brand of football. And I don't know, I take tremendous pride in playing for a team that right now everybody recognizes as one of the most physical teams in the country. There's something that just makes you stand up a little bit straighter and walk with your chest out, that we're the most physical team in the country, and people outside of the Big Ten have taken note.
Yeah. I want to go to this one from Shane Johnson, $2 super chat. I know it came a little bit earlier. It says, Michigan is now the number 1 total defense in the country. And shout out to Jesse Minter. I mean, yeah, this was Nebraska was missing their starting quarterback. The quarterback that they did start, Chubba Purdy, is not a good thrower, and then he gets knocked out of the game. Logan Smothers, probably even less of a talented thrower. Just that Nebraska, and you lose. I think in the span of maybe 2 or 3 snaps, they lost their starting quarterback for this game and their offensive coordinator after taking a shot on the sideline there. So, I mean, this is what it's supposed like to talk about good things. Let's go there. This is what it's supposed to look like defensively against a team like this. I know people probably still want to see more sacks, more pressure, but Nebraska had 146 total yards. Ryan, that's exactly what this is supposed to look like against a team that fired its head coach in September and has been all out of sorts throughout the year.
And I think going back to that previous comment, Jesse Minter deserves a lot of credit to be able to. I think our secondary is much more advanced than I think, at least I thought they were going to be coming into this season. I thought you'd see a couple leaky plays here and there, guys getting beat every now and again. It happens, especially when you play an aggressive style defense. But our secondary has been so solid in coverage. I mean, today specifically, I know Purdy wasn't the best quarterback in the world, but how many times did he have to pull the ball down because the coverage was just too good downfield and he has to scramble, and that's ended up what got him hurt. So I think our secondary has really been a surprise to me how strong they are as a unit and consistent. No one's been able to take advantage of them yet. Obviously, they have the biggest test of the year coming up at the end of the season, but Jesse Minter has done a fantastic job. There's a lot of guys contributing on defense. I feel like we have depth throughout almost all the positions on defense. Michigan defense looks great. It looked good last year, but looks great this year, and it looks like the future's bright. So I'm really excited to see and hopefully hold on to Coach Minter and see what year 2 defense under Minter will look like.
Absolutely. A question here from Brian Cartwright. What's wrong with Mike Morris? I didn't see the play happen live. I just saw him down on the field. It looked like he got kind of leg whipped by his own teammate. I don't know if that's what you saw on the broadcast, Ryan.
I lost you, Anthony. I can't hear you. I think we're having some technical difficulties here. Anthony Broom's going to join us back shortly. There he is.
Here. Sorry. I don't know what's cut out for a second. You got to play host for a second, though.
Hey, I was trying. I started to sweat immediately.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the question's up on the screen, but what did you
I saw the same thing. It looked like someone came in, going to the ground, caught Mike with a leg whip. Didn't look too serious. I think it's something that probably hurt in the moment, but he'll be fine. And back to the Donovan Edwards conversation, I was worried about him a little bit, but you watch him on the sidelines and stuff. There's times he's jumping up. He seems like he's healthy. We're just holding him back. There was no reason to put him at risk. And to be honest, one little criticism, I don't know that Mike Morris should have been out there at that time in order to preserve him for what's coming here at the end of the season. But he seems fine, and the fact that he jogged off the field, I'm encouraged. I think you'll see Mike Morris healthy.
Yeah, I don't see a concern there. I was rambling through that while I just see the spinning ring of death here on the screen there for a few minutes. But yeah, thanks for holding that down here. We'll keep going along. We got to the Mike Morris. See, now I have to catch up. This is what happens when we do stuff live. Let's go back to, I guess we're going to go back to the offensive conversation. Anthony Spencer says there's a catch-22. The starting wide receivers are so pivotal to the run game. If they just throw all new guys in there, it'll disrupt their bread and butter. Well, that's the thing. We talk about that all the time. Like, in order for you to, like, a prerequisite to get on the field is blocking. But then I also, like, there was a couple plays today where wide receivers are out front on a block, and Roman Wilson just kind of throws his arms out and doesn't do anything. And so it's like the guys that are out there aren't always holding up their end of the bargain either. So that is obviously a catch-22. It's why you can't just flip to 4 new guys out there at one time. But yeah,
I'm actually going to challenge that. The reason I say that is they were more pivotal at the beginning of the year. We threw a lot more bubbles, a lot more tunnels, a lot more flares to the running backs, and the receivers' blocks were pivotal at that point. Today, specifically, I want to say Blake Corum, 85-90% of his yardage came between the tackles, and the receivers weren't contributing in those blocks. And I think they were more pivotal than the beginning of this game. And they also got to consider we don't have 4 receivers out there. We got 2, most of the time because we've got our tight ends in. So I would say that the receivers being rotated shouldn't have as big of an impact on the run game as you may think. And I still think that the real catch-22 is dropping back to pass and getting into 2nd and 10, and everybody knows we're going to have 2nd and 10 and give it to Corum because that also telegraphs our offense. So if we're going to drop back and pass or roll out and pass, we need to be successful on first down. Otherwise, there's no point in going to it.
Yeah, and let's call a spade too. Like Michigan isn't a service academy, and they don't run the triple option. Like their wide receivers need to be able to catch the football and to create separation and to get open, and guys aren't doing that enough right now. And as it pertains to JJ McCarthy and where he is in all this, I think that right now he's a little bit rattled. We've seen that the last couple of weeks. I didn't think he was sharp last week, even though I think he was a little better than the stat line set against Rutgers. But this week was not good, and there were some frustrations there. And I think it is incumbent on Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss and Jim Harbaugh and everyone who has their hands in the cookie jar, so to speak, in developing what this thing looks like to get this guy back into rhythm. It's with the bubble screen stuff that we haven't seen since. I feel like I haven't seen a bubble screen called in 6 weeks.
Roman Wilson was taking every other one to the house.
Yeah, I mean, he scored what on his first, 4 touchdowns on like his first 5 touches of the season. That stuff has completely gone away. And I know that the competition level has gotten cranked up a little bit, but it's everyone's looking for their pound of flesh and who to blame. And is it the play callers? Is it the quarterback? Is it the wide receivers? To me, if I had to rank it, like right now, it's wide receivers. If you want, I say play caller and quarterback are interchangeable because JJ's missed on a couple of these throws. But yeah, it is. Again, I don't think anyone's played well enough in any area to warrant, just this blind faith that they deserve to be out there all the time. So, yeah, I don't think there's a question here. Is it outlandish to say JJ is the weak link in the offense when our receivers actually do get good separation? JJ can't make the throw. Your wide receivers don't get separation enough. I mean, to me, it's pretty clear that the weak link right now is that wide receiver room. And to be frank, over the last couple of weeks, your quarterback is probably part of that too. Just call it what it is. This was an interesting one. I want your thoughts on this, Ryan. What's up with the clock management at the end of the first half? I mean, am I missing out on what the strategy is there?
I was just thinking that was fine to concede and get 3 points. And that was kind of what their mindset was when they crossed the 50, because there was a minute 30 on the clock and we're still calling inside run plays with no potential of that running back getting out of bounds, even if that's a successful run play. So that was something that I noticed was that, all right, we're playing for the field goal because we want the ball in the second half. And against a Nebraska team who has a quarterback down, an offensive coordinator that's not coming back to the field because he's in the tent, I can understand that. I don't know that I'd feel that same way in an Ohio State game or in a game where the offenses are battling. But in that position, we're going to build Jake Moody up a little bit. He had a little not shakiness, but a little shakiness, we'll call it, at Rutgers. So I don't have an issue with it, but it's definitely taking the slider and moving all the way to the conservative side because we're just going to kick this field goal and milk the clock out.
Jeremy with a $4.99 super chat here. Appreciate that. Folks, if you want to get in, bump yourself to the front of the line for questions, shout outs on the air, use that donate feature below and we'll get you to the front of the queue here. Jeremy says, agree on the JJ take. You don't throw the ball over 15 yards downfield the first 8 weeks, then you just start throwing bombs. Well, I mean, they've taken their shots in games. They took shots in his very first start. The difference is that Roman Wilson can just blow by, a Hawaii defender, but when someone jams you at the line of scrimmage, you got to counter. I mean, it's as simple as that. So, yeah, it's, I don't believe that. Don't believe that because in order to get better at things, you have to execute them and you have to put them on film. And, unless there's some, I'll put it to you this way, what you see in these games, and Ryan, I don't know if you could back me up on this or not. Like, what you see on Saturday is the result of what you did Monday through Friday. And what I saw on the field offensively Saturday, outside of running the football, because that's a constant, that's always there for them, is I don't know that the passing game had a very good week of practice. Am I off on that?
No, I would agree with you, and that's something that I would like to, address with the comment is, I agree that we haven't thrown the ball down the field, and I was kind of one of the ones shaking my fist that let's get some balls downfield just to stretch some defenses so Corum opens up, even if we're not connecting. But we should be doing those in practice. There's no way that in all the hours of practice that we're not taking some time running some deep routes. But the problem is there's no contact on those routes in practice. Those routes are smooth and uninhibited. And then you get into a game situation and your hands are cold, you're jammed at the line, and JJ's just a little off. There does need to be some blame spent that way. There was one time in particular this game in the first half where we lined up under center. They're in press coverage. Their safety is only 10 yards deep and no one around. And we end up play action, throw the deep ball, but he threw it to the inside shoulder where the defender was, not the outside shoulder. And it's one of those things that, like, this guy, 5-star, he should know that. It's not throw it in the vicinity of where the receiver's at. It's put it in a good position away from the defender. And to be honest, not to be that guy that comes and talks about Cade McNamara, but that's what McNamara did really well. McNamara was a talented guy when it comes to throwing the ball in a place where only his guys could get to it. The defender had no chance at it. And I feel like that's something that's missing with JJ. He's putting the ball downfield, but where he's putting it in placement-wise is there's more to be desired. And part of that, I think, is that the receivers aren't open. But at the same time, the receivers not being open doesn't mean that you don't place the ball properly. And that's something that I'm hoping with maturity, more time, he's going to get better at. The problem that I see is that I'm not seeing any steps forward through the last 3-4 games. And you would think with the more experience, you would get better. And it kind of seems like not only are we not trending that way, I think we're getting a little bit worse.
Yeah, and it's, again, you're running out of time here. I know that's, that week of this is the one thing, again, we'll turn back into a positive, is that I think this team plays up to its competition, and a game like today, I'll say sort of plays down, but just didn't execute enough in this game. But I'm confident that they'll be ready to play Ohio State, but I just need to see a little bit more. That's all. Last year there was that game right before the Ohio State game where they go to Maryland and they win. I think it was 59-18. And you walk out of that game and you're like, you know what? I think this team's ready to go. You're going to get Illinois next week. And Illinois has lost 2 straight now and no longer controls their destiny in the Big Ten West. But Chase Brown also got hurt today. I don't know how competitive a game that's going to be, but I need to see a clean, decisive victory next week, because Ohio State's not coming to Ann Arbor in 2 weeks. You're going down there, and that team is pissed off that you ended their win streak last year. And again, I know that there's just so much more that I feel like throughout the course of this year, I'm just waiting for this Michigan team to hit that other gear. Defense has been outstanding. Run game, elite. Both of those among the best of the country. But there are just these small little solar flares where you sit here and you go, I think this team can be really good, and it's getting to be time where some of those things start to get shored up. So running out of time to do it though, Ryan. So we have a question here from Katie Bird, who says, does anyone have any updates on Luke Schoonmaker? Will he be back for the game? I think there's a chance he's back next week. I certainly think he'll be ready for the Ohio State game. Shout out to Colston Loveland, who I thought played very well. Reminds me of a young Jake Butt out there, just when you look at his aptitude in finding ways to get open. And okay, here's a positive. Play action. I saw a little bit more of that this week, and it seems like when they went to it, that was when Michigan had its most positive passing yardage and steps forward there. And all the analytics say that they've been elite in that area. So I'm surprised that we haven't seen more of that. But Colston Loveland, I mean, talk about next man up in the tight end room. I thought he was pretty good today.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're still missing Eric All, which I know we're not getting him back this year, but this is now our 3rd tight end that is, honestly, he probably made the best play, one of the best plays as a receiver for JJ McCarthy, even though it was a short route. It was a bad ball that he caught, got downfield, made a first down. He was targeted, he made his play. And that's what we need from any receiver, tight end, receiver, running back. But that's what we need just to complement this aggressive and dominant run game. And again, another guy that excited about where he blossoms and what he blossoms into in the future, because I think he's got a lot of tools to be a weapon and a matchup issue for teams moving forward.
Yeah, I want to address some of the criticism here. Brian Block says 97% of the country would be thrilled with 10-0, an unstoppable run game, and a shutdown defense. But every play is considered against the game. Enjoy the wins; they'll figure things out. I don't disagree with any of that. The thing about this team is that they have been so dominant all year. Like, wins like this have been the norm. So it's almost like you do kind of nitpick and do take things for granted. And I'll, hand up, I think I'm guilty of that here. But, and someone else says, Adam Shepardson says, letting perfect be the enemy of the good. We are fine. I hope I don't come off as Chicken Little saying that the sky is falling down. I think even with everything we've seen about this football team, I still give them, it's about I still think it's a coin flip. You go down to Columbus and win. I think they have the ingredients to do it again. I think that there are things that I do think there are things they are holding back for that game, especially, as it pertains to maybe trick plays or looks we haven't seen, or JJ McCarthy being more of a factor in the QB run game. His touchdown today, I thought was, again, we talked about creativity and some different looks down there. Another good look. I liked that play down there. So yeah, I'll go back and listen to it and probably kick myself for sounding like Mr. Negative Nancy, but I just feel like, Ryan, it's sort of our duty to come here and say, take the good with the bad. And when I've got producer Hutch puts 10 questions in the chat that says, people are asking about JJ McCarthy and deep balls and wide receivers, we're going to talk about what you guys are talking about. So that's just kind of where we're at with that. I think this team is a playoff team right now. I think they're deserving of where they're at. I would still have them 2A, 2B with Ohio State. They're going to play for the right to go to the playoff. It's a shame that someone has to come out of the Big Ten West, and that division is an affront to the sport of football. But yeah, I don't want to get things twisted here. Like, I'm very, if this is a C+ performance, or this is a performance where we're talking about meat left on the bone, you still win by 30 points. You take that and you don't apologize for it. So yeah, I mean, it's tough for me to be any more impressed with this team, which is why I think maybe that's where some of the tone comes from, and being, I won't say let down, but just, like to see some things get better.
I will do the same thing that you said, and I'm thrilled to be 10-0 for the first time since 2006. I'm giddy and trying not to get ahead of myself, but I'm so excited to go down to Columbus. And for me, I came to Michigan in 2007, and one of the solidifying things that knew I made the right decision, I'd already committed in that, was that 2006 1 versus 2, Troy Smith, Sean Crable, Lamar Woodley, Beanie Wells, that 1 versus 2 game in Columbus in 2006, one of my favorite football games, although it didn't go in our way, one of my favorite football games I've ever seen in my life. And that's what's going to happen, I feel like, in 2022 when we go down to Columbus. So we may not be 1 versus 2, but it'll be 2 versus 3, and all the marbles will be on the table. I think that the reason that I'm so concerned about the receiving core and the lack of big plays and impact plays from the receiving core is we've had such a comfortable season of being up or even with other opponents. Ohio State's one of the only opponents that I worry about not just in the Big Ten, in the country, that could get out to a 2-score lead on us potentially. And that's where I start getting worried of, okay, so where do we go from there if we end up in the second half needing to come back in Columbus? We won't come back without an impact receiver, or at least a receiver making an impact in the game. Maybe not an impact receiver per se, but that's going to be a necessary part of this offense. And then if you get into the playoff picture, I think so too. The other thing that I think just irks me slightly is that our running game is so good. There's not a defensive coordinator that we play against that isn't telling their team, number two, circle number 2. We're going to target number 2. That's their guy. That should open up the passing game. And that should blow the top off for us that they're committing so many people to the run, and yet it doesn't. And so there's part of me that thinks like, yeah, we might have a Ferrari that's winning races, but it's not running on all the cylinders that it could be. So there's a part of me that just wants to see the entire offense click, and who knows? It very well could for the Ohio State game, but there's a very glaringly obvious something missing, and we would love to have that piece because I think we have a really good shot at one, winning the Big Ten, but also competing in the national championship. I think Georgia's head and shoulders above everybody else, and then it's a scramble for number 2, and I think that's where we should be, could be, and maybe are, but just got to get that passing game developed.
Yeah, and my thing too, Ryan, is that this team set 4 goals for itself ahead of the season. It was beat Michigan State, beat Ohio State, win a Big Ten title, win a national title. And in everything you do and everything they prepare for, it's held to the standard of, can you accomplish those 4 things? I think they can, as is. I mean, they have to play better and hit on some of these these passing game opportunities, but I think as is, as constructed, I think you can beat Ohio State again. I truly believe that. But at some point too, it becomes, it's not like you want to win the Big Ten. Obviously, you want to get back to the playoff. But I think also the conversation, if you're going to stay in this national title kind of conversation, is that, if Michigan is able to get into the playoff, how you're going to be playing like Georgia. Georgia's going to be able to slow down, at the very least, slow down your run game, and they won't get bullied by your offensive line. And that's when you do have to kind of do some other things. And it's about, I have to choose my words carefully here, because there's nothing more important with this program than beating Ohio State and winning the Big Ten. But I also think that it's okay to think a little bigger and want a little more too. And there are some areas, and even if you want me to go to the other side of the ball and nitpick, I think that DJ Turner can play better at cornerback. He had a couple plays made on him today, and there are at times where I know the run defense has been so good throughout the year. It's the best run defense in college football, but there are times where teams have gone away from that a little too early. And I don't know. I don't want to sit here and just do the nitpick show, but I guess my point is that don't be afraid. Like 10-0 is great, and they deserve to be there. This team hasn't played a close game all season long. I don't think I think you can have both things and be happy with where they're at, and also be a little bit concerned, or maybe not concerned, but have question marks about what comes next. I think it's possible to do both things.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that you can be happily married to this team and still want to improve your relationship. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm very happily married to this Michigan football team, and I'm enjoying the success that they're having. But with that being said, I do see potential for even better from this team, and I think that's what everybody sees. And that's one of the things. That's why you play the game. Is if there's a perfect football team, I'd love for you to point them out. But there's always something that you can improve, tweak, and get better at. And one of the things that I feel like this team has is so few weaknesses that it's easy to get on a show like this and have all the comments be based on one thing offensively or even defensively. And it's a blessing to be in this position of 10-0 and picking apart the team. But at the same time, I don't see anything wrong with trying to find ways for this team to maximize its current potential, because there's more to this offense than what we've seen.
Yeah. And I already, don't get me wrong, I think, I have nothing but good things to say about the shows we come on and do here. But yeah, there is a bit of me that feels a little bit gross for spending so much time on nitpicks during this show. But again, when you're a program of Michigan's caliber, I think that you can, they're happy with the win, and obviously we're happy with the win, but breaking things down and just speaking objectively about it, there, like you said, there are always ways to get better. So something else I do want to update here is the U of M police did just release a statement going back to something that happened a couple weeks ago, that in conjunction with Michigan State Police, or Michigan State University Police, they've completed their investigation of the tunnel incident, and have forwarded their findings to the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office for review. So no other updates until the prosecutor makes a decision on what's going on. But I know people have been asking about that too. Hopefully this is something that is just wrapped up soon. You don't want this to linger any longer. Would hate for it to be a distraction, during, say, Ohio State week or whatever it is. But that is an update to something that just came out as we were on the air. So we can take a couple more questions here. I would love to take some positive questions. I'll take a comment here from Rashad because it's stroking my ego. Anthony is okay to nitpick in this situation. Michigan has bigger fish to fry, but can't and won't reach those goals with a shoddy passing game, especially if they fall down 2 touchdowns. That's the other thing too, is we haven't seen this team have to really play from behind. And what happens when they have to, say, abandon the passing game. So I don't think, a game, being concerned by a lack of like if they play Ohio State and Ohio State's secondary just kind of, is physical with the receivers and takes them out of the game. Like, okay, tip of the hat to you. Your guys are as talented as Michigan's guys. I can't sit here and sing the praises of the offense as a whole when you're getting jammed by guys from Nebraska or last week at Rutgers or things like that. So again, bigger fish to fry. I think that's a great way to put it. A couple more comments here.
I'll also jump in just to say expectation by position. Michigan has a tradition of excellent receivers. Braylon Edwards has set the table. We can go through the list of great receivers that we've had in the past 20 years. We need a good receiver at a Michigan team. That's just part of the game and part of the team, part of the brand. There's an expectation by position. So even as a former player, I know I've got the group chats and the receipts to prove it that as former players, we're looking for someone to emerge as a receiver because Michigan has a legacy of having talented receivers. And right now, no one jumps off the page at you.
Yeah. Andre Anthony's wearing the number 1 jersey. Had a touchdown tonight, though. So anyone who had that in a prop in Vegas, that paid out for you. So shout out to him there. Again, deep routes, the deep ball. Missed another one to him. Looked like he kind of stopped running his route like 3/4 of the way through. I'll have to go back and watch it on film. But this one's from Ken Zoll, who says, do you guys think OSU is going to be able to stop Michigan's run game? They're going to try. I mean, they're going to throw everything they can at it. I think that Michigan's offensive line, I'd still give them the edge in that game, even in Columbus. I mean, Michigan's been able to run the ball at Kinnick Stadium. They've been able to run the ball on Penn State. They've been able to run the ball in every single configuration this year. So until someone's able to stop it, I'm giving them the advantage in that matchup because didn't see Ohio State do it last year, and I don't know that they're that much more well-equipped to do it this year.
I don't see them as being able to stop our run game. They might be able to put a little bit more of a cap on it than anybody else has, but I was really encouraged about our ability to potentially run against Ohio State when I watched last week Ohio State play Northwestern in the windy city of Chicago. And defensively, Northwestern's not going to throw the football. They're going to run it at us. And even though they knew Northwestern was running the football at them, they still kind of struggled to slow them down and stop them. And Northwestern's run game is not Michigan's run game. I think that Ohio State is a victim of their own offense when it comes to what they practice against the spread, against the receivers, against drop back passes. They don't practice the inside run game like Michigan practices the inside run game. And as much as they may think that they're prepared for it, I think that they're going to be in for a long day in Columbus, however the score ends up going, because we are going to try and run the football, and I don't know that they can bow their necks and stop it the way they're expecting to.
Yeah, Adam Shepardson is calling a shot. He says Michigan runs for 250 plus in the game, so we'd like to see that. Malik Hayes says AJ Henning is just a punt returner now. No reverses come on. That's the other thing. Again, just a quick point. Not a lot of the pre-snap stuff, the bubble screens, the jet sweeps. Those were kind of, you have that pre-snap motion. It moves the defender, and you get to see kind of where your matchups are a little more clearly. I've been surprised we haven't seen more of that, and I don't necessarily believe that's all just playing possum for OSU. Part of it could be, I'm sure they'll just light their previous game plans on fire and go from scratch, but they're still going to want to do what they've been doing. So we'll see what happens there. Got time for a few more here. Adam Shepardson, back to you. This is Mason Graham, a freshman All-American. That's Ryan Van Bergen's guy. So give him some love, Ryan.
he for a freshman to play defensive tackle is such a amazing feat, because physically, to be the level developed that you need to be in order to hold your own and run games and then get some movement in pass games, I can't imagine going in there as an 18-year-old doing it. I mean, even Brandon Graham, a 5-star linebacker out of Detroit, who put too much weight on and then ended up playing nose guard his freshman year at Michigan. Even he really didn't impact the game like Mason Graham has. I'm really excited about him. I'm really excited about Baby Mozzie. I always forget his name, but I feel like he's another guy that is just another talented defensive tackle. And that's a position, if you guys have been listening for more than 1 year, I've been on here talking about the defensive tackle position as a weakness of our team for a long time. And I'm so comfortable sitting here now talking about our defensive tackles, because we've got great ones now. We've got great ones up and coming. We've addressed the issue, and it's obviously made an impact on how our defense performs. So I love Mason Graham. If there's a better freshman defensive tackle in the country, I'd like to see who it is, because I feel like and he's playing behind some great guys, but when he's in the game, he makes an impact. He's done it repeatedly. Really like this guy. Really excited about where he's going to be with the future of the program.
Yeah, and the way that they've flipped it so quickly has been probably the most impressive thing. I mean, 2 years ago, really even, 3 years ago, they're lining Ben Mason up on the goal line as a defensive tackle. Like, they've come so far from there. And credit to Sean Nua, who's no longer with the program, but bringing guys like Mozzie Smith and Chris Hinton last year, and Chris Jenkins, Rayshon Benny. I think they've got a pair of really good freshmen in Mason Graham, and Kenneth Grant is going to be a guy too. So, like I said, cannot speak that defense in general. I mean, they're so good, it's boring now in games like these, and that's the highest compliment you could pay them. If you want to, if you want me to go out on a high note here, this was a Michigan defense that smothered, no pun intended, Nebraska's quarterback's name was Smothers. That they didn't let. They haven't. This is the thing that has impressed me most about the defense, and we can get out of here on this one, Ryan, is that they haven't, outside of Keon Coleman grabbing a couple of those 50-50 balls in the Michigan State game, we haven't really seen the offenses that Michigan has gone up against have an uncharacteristically good day doing something. So that's, shout out to Jesse Minter for that, Mike Elston, George Hilo, Steve Klinkscale. I'm forgetting Jay Harbaugh with the safeties. Those guys are doing the work every single week, and it is so damn impressive. And it's actually borderline criminal that it took me 47 minutes to talk about that. But that's your game ball again today is those guys and what they've done week in and week out. This is 1,000% a better defense than last year. I think they're coached better. No offense to Mike McDonald. They make better adjustments. I think their talent is better across the roster, across the depth chart. Let's Ryan sing their praises, and then we'll close up shop here.
Defense wins championships, and that's something that I feel like offense puts people in the seat. Defense wins championships, and any good team that's going to win their Big Ten or win their conference championship, compete for a chance in the playoff, all of them are going to have good defenses. And I think that Michigan's defense gets a little bit overlooked because, one, we don't do the best job generating turnovers. It's the one area where we lack. So you don't see us scoring on defense and having those types of plays. But the non-sexy stuff, the limiting big plays, the getting off the field on third down, first down wins. The amount of time we win on first down is crazy. We're always at 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10. No one's ahead of the chains on us ever. And that's just 1st and 10 is the hardest defensive play call. You may not know that watching as a fan. 1st and 10 is the hardest play call that you'll call because the whole list is available to you. And for us to win on first down so consistently, you would never notice it, but it's such a tremendous kudos to the guys out there playing. And I think that defensively, we're going to see our biggest test with Ohio State, but I think that this defense is better equipped than last year's defense to play the game. And I think that you'll see a more positive performance defensively even than last year. And last year was plenty good to get the win, obviously. So super excited about this defense. I think there's a lot of NFL talent and stars out here that people don't realize because they don't have the star power yet. But these guys are going to be playing on Sundays. And there's a tradition of excellence that's been built at Michigan, kind of had some tarnished years here and there. But right now, the current looks good and the future looks better.
As I feel a bit guilty of during this podcast tonight, but hasn't been done in 16 years. Doesn't happen a lot. I mean, it just hasn't happened a ton in the history of Michigan football, at least recently. So embrace that. You can have it both ways. I mean, Ryan put it best. He is firmly married to this program, married to this team. But gosh darn it, there are some things you can improve on too. And the reason that you do kind of fixate on that is because you know the potential is there to be something else. We're not, nobody's holding them to this impossible standard, holding them to the standard that they've set. And I think even they would tell you that they've missed some opportunities in some of these games to make them a little bit uglier. But yeah, I mean, this is 22 and Michigan's 22-3, I think now over the last 2 years under Jim Harbaugh. I'm sorry, is it 22-2? Math is hard.
This is single digits.
Especially. I don't have a Michigan degree like Ryan does, so I went to a party school. But yeah, don't take this for granted. These are the type of seasons that put you in that conversation with the Georgias, the Alabamas, and even, if you want to hold yourself to the Georgia standard, fine. Look how many years, it took time for them to get to the playoff a couple times and crack the code and figure things out and unlock what they're going to be. So just enjoy the ride right now. I think that the fact that there is some nitpicking on the show and the comments with the fan base, whatever it is, I think it speaks to you having a higher standard for your football program. And it's a beautiful thing because higher standards mean high expectations and high accomplishments. So one last $5 shout out from Dave Mays. It says, great job, guys. Go Blue. We appreciate you, Dave. Appreciate everyone who has joined us here on the Wolverine.com postgame show. Be sure to like the video below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos. Chris Ballas and Doug Skeen will be live on Sunday night. Three of us, Chris Ballas, Clayton Safey, and myself will be back Monday. John Borton and Tom Crawford on Tuesday. EJ's recruiting show Wednesday. And then a week from today, Ryan and I will probably be doing a show about this time. We'll see what kick time looks like for the Illinois game, but we'll be doing this show next week, nitpicking the crap out of another game and asking ourselves if it's good enough to beat Ohio State. So, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. Producer Hutch, thank you for all you do for us behind the scenes. Thank you to Lewis Jewelers for being our sponsor. Michigan wins 34-3 over Nebraska, covers the big spread. I don't know if I even said that at all, but Michigan was a 30-point favorite. But yeah, workmanlike, another game where it's just another notch on the belt. 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be doing an Ohio State postgame show, and I'm either looking at booking a reservation for St. Elmo's or I'm sitting on my hands and thumbing through bowl projections. We'll see what happens from there. But thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.